Hi guys, Miss Francis here to continue our discussion on Mendelian genetics. We're actually going to continue our discussion on things that Mendel actually didn't know about. Mendel did not know that blood types are coded for by genes that are controlled by more than two alleles. And he also didn't know about something called the RH factor. And those are things we'll explore today. So let's start by talking about characteristics that have multiple alleles, such as human blood type, meaning that the genes are controlled by more than two alleles. So the genes that code for human blood type have more than just two alleles. Human blood type actually has three alleles. You've got capital I, capital A, where the capital I just stands for immunoglobulin. And those are proteins that are found in our immune system. You've got type B, and then you've got type O, which is represented by a lowercase I, where the alleles for blood type A and B are dominant to the allele that codes for blood type O, but the type A and B alleles are codominant. That's how you could end up with blood type AB. So let's take a look. Here are how the phenotypes break down regarding what genotype would describe them, because when you're doing genetics problems, you need to know the genotypes for the characteristic that you're exploring. So if I have type A blood, I can be homozygous or I could be heterozygous. If I have blood type B, I could also be homozygous or heterozygous. Type AB, this is where you have your codominance. That means that my A and B alleles are expressed at the same time. Neither one is dominant over the other one. If I'm blood type O, then I am recessive. So if you were to try and solve a problem, for example, if I have a kid with type A and a mom with type O, what potential blood types could the father have? You would use a Punnett square to solve this type of problem. So we know that the mom is going to have lowercase I, because that's the only way you can get blood type O. But now the kid could be heterozygous, or the kid could be homozygous dominant for blood type A. So if I put the mom's genotype along the top, I know that my kid could either be heterozygous or the kid could be homozygous. Well, there's no way I would be able to get a homozygous combination for the kid having blood type A. But if my father was either heterozygous type A, or if the father was type AB, or even if the father was homozygous type A, all of those blood types could potentially lead to a child having type A. So the father could be either type A or the father could be type AB. Let's look at another example. I've got mom with type A, dad with type A, and child with type O. And is this possible is what we're being asked. I could have blood type homozygous A, or you could be blood type heterozygous A. Same goes for dad. Would it not be true that if both mom and dad were heterozygous, that if I ended up doing a Punnett square, I could potentially end up with a child that has blood type O? So yes, that would be possible. Now let's look at the second situation. Can a man with type B, so if a man who has type B blood, he could be homozygous for that, or he could be heterozygous. With a woman that has type AB, so this is the only possibility that the woman could be, could they have a child with type O? And the answer is no. They could not have a child with type O because the mom can only give either A or B. The mom can't give any O. Therefore, the kid would not be able to be type O if this was the situation. So knowing blood types is also important for paternity tests and forensic cases. Knowing blood types is also important for blood transfusions because not every blood type can receive blood from every other blood type. So if I am type A, that means that on my red blood cell, on the surface of my red blood cells, I've got these proteins called antigens that are type A. And in fact, it's oligosaccharides, which are part of glycoproteins that actually identify the different blood types. So if I'm type A, I have antigen A. If I'm type B, I have antigen B. If I'm type AB, I have both antigens on the surface of my red blood cell, both A and B. If I'm type O, I have neither antigen A nor B on the surface of my red blood cells. Now, how does this play a role in blood transfusions? Let's say I'm blood type A. Within my body, I have what's called anti-B antibodies. Now recall, antibodies are what's inside our body that protects us from foreign invaders. In this case, a person with blood type A recognizes someone with blood type B as a foreign invader and would fight against that type of blood. Let's look at a person with blood type B. They've got anti-A antibodies, meaning that anyone who has an A antigen is going to be recognized as a foreign invader, and that person will fight against those blood types. Now, because I'm a person that has AB blood, I don't have any antibodies. So potentially I could receive any type of blood. But look at this case. If I have blood type O, I have both A and B antibodies. Therefore, any blood type that has either A or B antigens cannot be given to someone with O. So type O can only receive from type O. So let's look at who can donate to who and who can receive from who. Before that, what would actually happen if someone did receive the wrong type of blood? It's called agglutination, where the blood cells clump together and they form blockages, obviously preventing the flow of blood, which is not what you want. So here's the chart of who can donate to who and who can receive blood from who. AB is known as the universal recipient because it can receive from all different blood types. Type O is known as the universal donor because it contains no antigens, therefore can donate to any blood type because it won't be rejected by any of the blood types. There's another protein that's located on the surface of our red blood cells called the Rh factor. So the Rh factor is another antigen that's found on the surface of the red blood cells. And it got its name because it was first identified in the rhesus monkey. So you can be positive or negative for the Rh factor. So if I'm Rh positive, I can be homozygous or heterozygous. And Mr. Anderson rates it as this. Either way is fine. Or I could be Rh negative, meaning I don't have the antigen. So that is a recessive trait. Mr. Anderson rates it as this. Now, when does this pose an issue? It poses an issue with pregnancy. Let's say I have a dad who's Rh positive and a mom who's Rh negative. Well, the first time that woman is pregnant, there is a possibility that the child has, or the fetus is Rh positive. That's fine for the first pregnancy. During birth, the fetus blood and the maternal blood mixes. When that happens, what the mom starts doing is producing antibodies that would fight Rh positive blood cells. So then if during the second pregnancy that fetus is Rh positive, mom has these antibodies that are going to fight against that baby. And as a result, it can be fatal. Fortunately, in developed countries like the United States, we have medications that we can give to the pregnant woman that enables her to have an Rh positive fetus, and the antibodies don't attack that fetus. So here are some sample questions that you could be asked regarding blood type. They would ask you if the mother is type O and the father's O positive and the father's A negative, what could the offspring be? Or they could give you the mother's blood type and the child's blood type and ask what the father would be. So I like to kind of treat this as a dihybrid problem where blood type is the first characteristic and Rh factor is the second characteristic. So let me show you what I mean. So here are the possible genotypes. If I have a mother that's O positive and a father that's A negative. And what I would do is I would set up some Punnett squares. Well, the first set of Punnett squares are going to deal with the blood type, where I can put the mom on top and I could put the two possibilities of the dad along the side. And then I would do this Punnett square. I would fill it out and see what I end up with. So in the first Punnett square, I would end up with all heterogeneous type A. In the second Punnett square, I could end up with heterogeneous type A, or I could end up with type O. So now let's tackle the Rh fit. So again, I'll put mom on top. Mom could either be homozygous or heterozygous positive, and dad is negative, so it's recessive. And if I were to do these Punnett squares, I would come out with this result, where dad is, or where the offspring, could either be positive, or here they could be positive or negative. So my end result would be that my offspring could potentially be A positive, A negative, O positive, or O negative. So the correct answer would be choice C. Try this next problem. See how you do. So I hope you paused the video and were able to get the answer as a letter B. That if the mother of a child with type O positive and the child is A negative, what could the father be? The father could be any of those types.